Sacred Selections. Then you kind of work in where you can hear good. Appreciate so much everybody coming. I know that in a lot of ways it takes some sacrifice. A lot of people have put some work into this. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But Sacred Selections is a great organization. I've seen firsthand how special it is, and I just want to share a little bit about that and give you my thoughts on that. I think it's an organization worth getting behind. I know a lot of people here have some firsthand knowledge of that as well. So there's just a lot of things to appreciate about it. I'd like to spend a minute talking about that, and then also tell you a little bit about what we were trying to do with this gathering. And then I'll finish by going through a few ways that you can kind of get behind Sacred Selections and give a little bit of a call to action. So if you would bear with me for just a few minutes. The first Sacred Selections fundraiser that I went to was about 6 years ago. My wife Gloria and I were sharing a table with Stephen and Sharon McCrary, who we were just getting to know, and a few other poor young preachers and their wives. It was all Gloria and I could do to afford a ticket to even be there. And when they started auctioning things off, I remember thinking, man, they invited the wrong group of people. But still, as the presentation went on, I was so moved by the stories that I heard, the stories that were shared, the Christian attitudes that were expressed by everybody involved. It was just very inspiring, and I hope in at least a little bit of a way to inspire some people here today. I've learned more through the years about what Sacred Selections is trying to do, trying to find Christian homes for children in need, and it's just a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. One of the things that stood out to me the most was their pledge, Sacred Selections pledge, that 100% of funds raised goes directly to support adoptions. If you've ever researched charities and things like that, you know that it's really hard to find a charity where the money actually gets to where the need is. And that's one of the most special things I think about what they're trying to do. I've heard about David and Dana Carrazza for years. They're the ones who started Sacred Selections. It's been going for about 15 years, but from what I understand, she's been kind of learning about the adoption process and helping with that for even 10 years before that. But 15 years ago, they sold their business and started what in his words, he said, we wanted to start a business for the Lord. That's what they wanted to do. She had been moved to help with adoptions because they had been involved in a pregnancy testing clinic and had seen women find out that they were pregnant and planned to go get an abortion. And her heart was just breaking knowing that, learning that. And so she wanted to help. It really, the more you learn about their story, it's a beautiful story of just two Christians who saw a need and jumped in and tried to help with that need. And there's a website, you can go and you can learn more about this. It's a beautiful story, just their personal story. But since then, since that 15 years ago, they have helped over 400 children to find homes in, I believe it's 350 families, 29 states that they've impacted through their efforts. And of course, a lot of people have gotten behind them through the years, which is what we're doing here today. But still, it was just because two people decided, we're going to try to do something. We're going to try to help. And I think that's a beautiful, inspirational story. They've been shining Christ's light all along the way. If you've ever been close to somebody who's been going through the adoption process, you know how emotional, how complicated, and how costly it can be. The average domestic adoption can cost between $20,000 and $45,000. Minimum $20,000. It's just crazy. I think we could all agree it's a shame that it's that expensive, but that is, the reality. That's the way it is. And so, you end up with young families who want to adopt, but can't realistically afford that. And so Dana and David's vision was to connect, Christians who had funds and the ability to connect that with the younger families who were ready to adopt and needed the help. and it's a beautiful model. They help with legal processes, cost, attorney fees, government fees, agency fees, court fees. For 15 years, she's been building a network with adoption agencies and lawyers from around the country. So if you know somebody who's thinking about adopting, it's an amazing resource. She has an amazing network that she's put together, and Sacred Selections is growing. They're growing their network and really becoming something that should, it should outlive David and Dana because of the way they're building it. If you're part of a Sacred Selections family that has benefited from some of their activities, would you just stand up for just a second? I imagine there's quite a few here. If you're a part of a Sacred Selections family that has benefited in any way from what they've offered, please stand for just a moment. So you can look around. There's several people here that you can talk to. If you're curious, if you'd like to know more, I think most of you are here because you already know a little bit anyway, but you can talk to these folks. I'll go ahead and be seated. Thank you. Talk to these folks. We're going to be here. You're welcome to stay till about 4. That's when we were hoping people would stay. Talk to these people. Get to know their experience. And I think you'll find that Sacred Selections it's an organization worth getting behind. It's extremely inspiring. What they have to say, what these people have to say, would speak louder than anything that I could say. Let me speak for just a minute about Stephen and Sharon McCrary. When they were working to adopt their first child, Jericho. Where is Jericho, by the way? He's out playing. All right. He's over 5 now, which is blowing my mind. But the members of our congregation, the Selfville Church, and some other Christians got together to plan a yard sale just to try to help out. I forget some of the particulars, but through that we raised something close to $2,000 for them. The thing about that left the biggest impact on me was what an amazing blessing the work ended up being for our group. It brought our group closer together. And there's still, we were just sharing some stories about that event where, we were brought closer together, working together and serving together for the good of that cause. It was a great thing for us. It was a lot of work, obviously, but it was a great thing for our congregation. At this time, I'd like to get Stephen to come up. He's going to talk to you just a little bit about what they're trying to do now. They're obviously, the reason we're here, they're trying to get placed with their second child, and we're all praying very hard for that. So I'll give Stephen the floor for just a moment.
I've said I'm not very good at these things without an outline, so I've got something. I'm sorry. I can't express how thankful I am for every single individual who's here, but I'm going to try. We often will tell Jericho that he got where he is because a lot of love and support was poured out by a lot of people who deeply care about him. And today, no matter what happens, today is one of those times where he gets to see it, and he gets to be around it, and he gets to talk with you and to see how much you care. And all this is not just about me and Sharon. Really, all this is not just about us, right? You're here because you want to support us in being ready to adopt a second time, and we're thankful for you being here. But not just that you're here, but that each of you hold a special place in our lives. Because each of you represent prayers for us in this effort to fight against Satan. No matter what happens, no matter what you do, if you're praying for more children to be adopted into homes that will teach them about the Lord, then you're doing good in that way. And so I encourage that in your life. The awkward part of all this is that we have not yet been matched. You might ask, well, who's the baby? Is this for Jericho? Well, no, we've got Jericho. Jericho's taken care of. But we have not yet been matched. I say that, but we were actually matched 3 times last year. And each of those times it was a disruption. Just so you know, when a match doesn't work out, we don't call it a failure. We don't call it a loss. We don't call it a setback. We call it a disruption. The reason for that is because someday we hope and trust in the Lord that we will be matched with somebody. And overall, God's will is what we want. We want the Lord's will to be done. whatever that is. And until that time, anything else is just a momentary disruption, and so we wait on him. In the meantime, I will let you know, though, that these disruptions are not pointless endeavors. Each time we've been able to meet up or speak with people over the phone that we have never before met, and maybe never will meet again, but in those moments, we've been able to express our love for them as individuals who've been made in the image of God. And I believe this is worthwhile, because some people never hear, I love you because God loves you. Not everybody gets to know that or see that in their life. And so through these moments, even though they haven't worked out in the grand scheme of things, we've been able to, I believe, to make an impression. And so yes, we hope and trust that God has a solution for us in all this, but we also know that the journey to adoption is just as valuable as the destination. I thought about this as I was preparing these thoughts. You know, Jacob didn't start in Egypt. And he knew that he didn't want his bones to stay there. But his trip to Egypt was necessary. It was a point between two places. And we believe that our trip to having a second child is necessary. And you being a part of it is a great treasure to us. You might wonder what is intended by sacred selections. Sam's already given you an idea. Some people might think that this is the work of the church. And in a sense, you could say that. But really, we recognize sacred selections is not a replacement for the work of the local congregation. There is no replacing that in God's plan. And so we work with our local congregations, and that's how we work collectively in the ways that God has told us to. Primarily, what this is right now is what I would call kingdom work. Those of us who are Christians, we're part of the kingdom of Christ. And our work as individuals is a part of the work of that kingdom. And that kingdom can go beyond the church in some ways. I don't want to go too far into that, but individual disciples giving of themselves to efforts such as this is one of the places where that kingdom work happens. You're part of planting those seeds associated with kingdom work, and for that reason, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today and for being willing to support us. Thank you very much.
Just a few more minutes. I've been part of a few Sacred Selections auctions since that first one, and I've loved every experience. I don't want to take away from that. I know there are some here that have helped plan and execute those, and they're great. But our idea with this gathering was just to create a fun day, a little bit less formal setting to get Christians together, and it's just been so exciting. I've really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people have expressed how much they've enjoyed that. We wanted to have an environment where the kids would come and have fun. And part of that is the kids hearing about what we're trying to do, hearing about the needs, and maybe reminding them remind all of us how blessed we are to have the people that God has given us in our lives. Stephen's mentioning that placement process and how difficult that can be. For most of us, we landed in our families, and we sometimes maybe take that for granted. Let's not take that for granted. It's an amazing blessing that we have. So we wanted with this gathering to just get Christians together. In some ways, the gathering the Gandhis planned a couple of years ago was a pattern for me there. I just wanted to have a fun day, just get people together, and I hope that we'll succeed in that. I think we are. You're welcome to hang out till about 4 and take full advantage of that, and I definitely want to get back to that just as soon as we can. One thing, we're thinking that we would like to try to make something like this an annual kind of event. So if you have some feedback for us or some ideas for us, I really would like this to become an annual thing. So if you have any feedback for us, please let me know. Give me just a second. I want to talk about how good it's been for this group to pull together. This group of Christians pulled together to make it happen. A huge thank you to the Gandhis for donating these awesome facilities. It's an extremely wonderful place for what we're doing, so thank you very much, Gandhis. And to the Jet family, if you like the barbecue, you want to thank the Jets. The Jet family made that happen, and the drinks, beautiful, wonderful effort there. The Hancocks for their hard work in making these desserts, several options of desserts there for us. Need to thank Adam Shanks, Keith Stoneheart for agreeing to provide some live music, which we'll get back to just now. And a whole bunch of other people. I won't try to mention everybody, but a lot of people that work to plan and organize and make this day happen. So just thank you to everybody for that. One of the greatest things for me was just seeing different people get excited about their part. Seeing different ones get excited about what they were assigned to do. And I just think it's wonderful. I would kind of plant that in your mind as hopefully a seed to inspire you to plan and execute and make something happen for the kingdom. Stephen talked about serving the kingdom. That's what we're trying to do. We should all be looking for ways to do that. So for just a minute, let me talk about things that we can do and what we should be trying to do. Just by way of introduction here, let's remember God wants us to be fruitful. He wants us to do good for our fellow man. We need to try to maximize the abilities that God has given us. I think a lot about the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's a beautiful story. Remember, Jesus was asked in a very defensive way, "Who is my neighbor?" And when you read the context there, what the guy was really asking was, who do I have to show love to? Who do I have to show love to? Was what he was asking. And I hope that none of us have that attitude. That's such a shameful attitude to have. Instead, we should be asking, who can I show love to? Who can I in my life show love to? Look for opportunities to show Christ's love in any way that we can. To illustrate the point, Jesus tells this story. Remember the priest and the Levite passing by on the other side? Remember that they saw the man in need. It wasn't that they didn't see him. They saw the man in need and passed by on the other side. In the language of 1 John, they closed their heart against him. How does the love of God abide in us if we see someone in need and we close our heart against them? Let's not do that. They did not care enough. Why did they pass by on the other side? They didn't care enough. They didn't love. They weren't willing to show compassion. We need to take a lesson from that. Now, showing real love is not easy. It's hard to show real love. It's not just writing a check or handing somebody cash. Remember in this story, the Samaritan commits to coming back and checking on the man. He commits not only his time in that moment and money in that moment, but he commits to coming back and checking on that man. And Jesus in the story says, go and do likewise. Go and be like that. Go and find the needs and try to address the needs and do good for people. We all need to be praying for opportunities to serve. Stephen mentioned prayer. I'm going to talk about that more in just a second. We all need to be praying for opportunities to serve and act with love for our fellow man. Now, obviously, supporting Sacred Selections is only one way among many you can do that. I'm going to present some ways that you can support Sacred Selections, but I'm not trying to guilt you or make you feel like, oh, if I'm not supporting Sacred Selections, I'm failing in some way. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to serve, but I'm going to present some ways that you can serve them. I heard about some stories. David was telling me some stories about some young people. He had several stories, two in particular. They were seniors in high school, and as part of their senior project, they decided to plan fundraisers for Sacred Selections. This young man from Indiana ended up raising over $2,000 for Sacred Selections. I'm not sure what his project was, but just because he saw the need and wanted to help. This lady, young lady, Sydney, she went around her neighborhood and sold cookies that she hadn't made yet. She sold orders of cookies. And then she said in here she worked 45 hours cooking, but she ended up raising $2,500 for Sacred Selections just from her efforts. That's what she wanted to do. And those kinds of stories are the kind of stories you'll hear a lot around Sacred Selections. It's just people trying to step up and do what they can. So that's the main plea I would have for you, is find something you can do. Find something that you can do to serve. Right here, right now, we have over at the tables here the Sacred Selection Songbook gift. If you saw there, you can fold patterns into the old Sacred Selection songbooks. You can sponsor a Sacred Selections child, and that's something that you can do. In fact, I have a presentation to make. Is Jericho anywhere nearby? Or?
See if I can grab it.
Yeah, see if you can get Jericho. All right. When you get him, let me know.
Yes, sir.
But you can, if you have a Sacred Selections family that you're trying to show some love to, You see over there, they've got the Sacred Selections picture bent into it, but here they've done the Sacred Selections number. Jericho was number 154, so we folded this book for him. This was something we were going to give to him. So we've got the Sacred Selections songbook here with Jericho's number 154, special made for you, buddy. That's yours. Yeah. So if you have a Sacred Selections child in your circle and you'd like to support something like that, so that's something that you could give to. We also have some other custom gifts and shirts and things like that set out that you can purchase. Also, if you like the barbecue, there's not a lot extra, but there's a couple of first come, first serve pork butts for sale. I think we were asking $35 extra for one of those. He's got them flash frozen. You keep them in your fridge until you're ready, and then pop it in, cook it, and it'll be just as good as it was today. So that's going to be $35 a piece if you're interested in that. We don't have a lot, so first come, first serve on that. What we were really going to do, rather than do the auction, was just ask everyone to search your heart. Search your heart and think about what can you give, knowing that adoptions are minimum $20,000. Just what can you give? And just give that on the way out. You see on your table there, we've got the QR code or the text to give. You can give on your credit card or however it's easiest. But just search your heart and give what you can. Just give what you can to the cause. It is a worthy cause, and there's more to be said about that if you'd like. I was also thinking, as we're here today, if you think about people that maybe would have liked to have heard some of this, would have liked to come been a part, you can share that QR code. You can share the text number, and they can give, anybody can give at any time. So you can keep that in mind. Also, I was made aware, David told me, they have a group that they're trying to start. They're trying to get 500 Christians to commit to a $1,000 gift a year. And 500 Christians, 1,000 a year is basically $83 a month is all that would be. And it's going to go toward 60% toward funding current adoption. But they're trying to start building an administrative cost into some of this. So 20% to administrative costs and 20% to an ongoing endowment for future adoptions. So if you're in a position to possibly commit to that, that would be a wonderful thing for some people to do. Also, this, if you don't have that much money to give, this is a really neat thing. You can just text, and I'll keep this if anybody's interested, but you can text to that number, and you can become a part of the Sacred Selections prayer group. And basically what happens, as you learn more about Dana, you know she gets calls at crazy hours all through the year about opportunities and about emergencies and things that have to take place quickly. And so she'll text to this group and let people know, hey, please be praying about this. Please be praying about this particular adoption or this particular situation. And even if there's a need for some emergency funds, she'll send that out to that number as well. So if you want to be a part of that, it doesn't require any financial commitment, but it's just something you can do to be a part of the network. Also, they're looking for corporate sponsors. If you know any Christian-owned businesses that might be in a position to help, that would be something worth sharing. I just put my notes down. So keep some of that in mind. But above all of this, let's keep praying. Let's pray specifically for the McCrarys. Pray specifically for their hopeful second adoption. I think that it's such a wonderful thing that they're trying to do, and we need to keep that in our prayers. Prayer is such a powerful tool. Also, David mentioned, he said they're always looking for Christian families that might be in a position to adopt. So if you know any Christian families that might be in that kind of a position, that time of life, put them in contact, make that connection, and maybe get behind in that way. I think that's about all that I had. I'm looking over at my crew. Do we have any housekeeping announcements or anything? All right, well, I'm about ready to turn you loose. There's plenty of more desserts. There's lots of drinks. Just please make yourselves at home, have fun. Like I say, hang out till about 4 or so, and if you want to stick around and help clean up, that would be appreciated too. But thanks again for coming, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the time.
Thank you all.